Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating story of American industrial revival. We're looking at a brand new pre-feasibility study that is literally setting the stage to bring a massive, heavy-duty industry right back to U.S. shores. So if you're into strategic comebacks and, frankly, massive economic upside, well, the numbers coming out of the Pilot Mountain Tungsten project are absolutely going to catch your attention. To really wrap our heads around why this project is making such huge waves right now, we've got to start with a glaring vulnerability. Just ask yourself, what critical defense metal hasn't been mined in the United States in over a decade? We're talking about a metal that is absolutely foundational to modern technology, to aerospace, and to our entire defense industrial base. The fact that the U.S. has had zero domestic production of this for more than 10 years, that's a massive, gaping hole in the supply chain. But as you'll see, every huge problem like this sets up an equally huge opportunity for a solution. Okay, let's dive into this. That missing metal? It's tungsten, and it is an absolute strategic powerhouse. You need it for everything: defense applications, the global energy transition, aerospace engineering, you name it. But here's the really critical context. The global tungsten market is going through a massive, unprecedented structural reset as we speak. For years, China accounted for something like 80% of the world's primary supply. But then, in February 2025, they slapped export controls on tungsten raw materials. So suddenly, the global supply is squeezed unbelievably tight, and the Western world is frantically waking up to how vital it is to secure reliable homegrown critical minerals.
Section 1. Enter Pilot Mountain.
Section 2. Blockbuster financial results.
Let's look at Guardian Metal Resources project in Nevada. We have to start with the baseline metric of success here, which is 59.6%. That is the project's after-tax internal rate of return, or IRR, right out of the gate on their base case. Now, for anyone familiar with mining economics, an IRR approaching 60% is phenomenally strong. But here's the real kicker. That 59.6% is based on highly conservative pricing assumptions. Guardian Metal modeled this base case using a tungsten price discounted by about 35% compared to the June 2026 spot price. So even when they're playing it incredibly safe, this project is a total financial juggernaut.
But what happens if we actually strip away that conservative discount and just look at the real market conditions today? Well, if you run the numbers using the June 2026 tungsten spot price, the economics go from fantastic to just extraordinary. The internal rate of return leaps to a jaw-dropping 101.6%. And even more incredibly, the capital payback period, the time it takes to actually recoup the initial construction costs, drops from a very swift 1 year in the base case all the way down to just 6 months. I mean, a 6-month capital payback on a major mining operation, that is virtually unheard of. It just highlights exactly how lucrative and perfectly timed this project really is. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer volume of wealth generation modeled here. Under that highly conservative base case we just talked about, Pilot Mountain is projected to generate $1.058 billion in after-tax free cash flow over its initial 8-year mine life. And if you swap in those June 2026 spot prices, that cash flow doubles to over $2 billion. In its very first full year of operations alone, the base case models an EBITDA, so earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, of $348 million. This project doesn't just fill a strategic gap, it's an absolute financial engine. And this brilliantly illustrates the financial journey of the mine. If you look at the cumulative after-tax cash flow, you see a brief, totally manageable dip during that initial $288.7 million capital expenditure phase. But the second year one hits, revenue shoots up, and that cumulative cash flow begins an aggressive, relentless climb straight up and to the right. It perfectly visualizes that ultra-fast payback period we talked about. Literally by the end of year one, they are completely out of the red and printing free cash flow for the rest of the mine's life. Section 3. Inside the operation. Now, you might be thinking, returns like this require some wild experimental technology, right? Actually, no. The secret here is simplicity. The whole operation follows a super straightforward path. It kicks off with conventional open-pit mining, using standard 92-ton haul trucks and large wheel loaders to get the ore out. From there, the ore heads to a processing plant built to handle 4,000 tons per day. They're using an industry-standard fatty acid flotation circuit to separate out the valuable minerals. The end result? A high-quality tungsten concentrate graded at over 60% that can be completely processed right here within the United States. Oh, and as a really nice bonus, the process also recovers silver and zinc, which adds these valuable byproduct credits that drive operating costs down even further.
Tracing the steady, reliable production profile over the initial 8-year life of the mine, you can see how output just jumps up immediately. From the very first full year of operations, they are targeting robust output, eventually pulling a total of 15,916 tons of recovered tungsten over the mine's life. And keep in mind, this 8-year timeline, that's just the starting point. The study actually points out significant opportunities to extend the mine's life through ongoing exploration at a few other really promising zones on the property, specifically the Tremor Zone and Good Hope. Section 4, a national security priority.
So the crucial point is that this project means so much more than just strong dividends. It's perfectly summarized by Mark Leduc, Guardian Metals operations manager. He says, tungsten is a metal critically important to U.S. defense, national security, and reindustrialization, yet there has been no domestic production in the country for over a decade. Pilot Mountain is just uniquely positioned to fill this gaping hole in the U.S. supply chain. It's a high-margin project that doesn't just make money, it literally makes the country fundamentally more secure. And hey, you don't have to just take Guardian Metals' word for it. The U.S. government completely agrees. In July 2025, the U.S. Department of War, acting under Title III of the Defense Production Act, invested $6.2 million directly into Guardian Metals' subsidiary to make this exact pre-feasibility study possible. That level of institutional backing is massive. It totally validates the credibility of the project and shows just how seriously the highest levels of government are taking the need to bring domestic tungsten production back to life.
Section 5, the road to 2028. Let's move to and see how this builds a clear and aggressive path to production, now that the incredibly strong economics are proven out. Sitting here with the PFS completed in June 2026, the next major milestone is working through the federal NEPA permitting process. That's the National Environmental Policy Act, which they expect to clear by mid-2027. Once permitting is successful and a final construction decision is made, they're targeting their first ore through the mill by the fourth quarter of 2028. Because the global supply deficit is so severe right now, the company even noted they might proceed straight to construction based on this highly detailed PFS alone. Basically, they might bypass the need for a further feasibility study just to get this critical metal to market faster.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We're looking at a project with a base case 1-year capital payback, over $1 billion in free cash flow, full U.S. defense backing, and the very real potential to single-handedly revive domestic tungsten production. The numbers are just staggering, the timing couldn't be better, and the strategic need is undeniable. So is Pilot Mountain not just a fantastic mining project, but the actual blueprint for America's broader critical mineral revival? It definitely gives us a lot of reasons to be incredibly optimistic about the future of American industrial independence. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on Pilot Mountain.